EastEnders fans in Milton Keynes expressed disappointment and anger over the soap's portrayal of their city. Scenes depicting a child character involved in drugs and eating from bins drew criticism. Residents, including longtime viewers, felt insulted and argued for a more accurate representation of Milton Keynes' modern architecture and positive aspects. Some highlighted the city's strengths, dismissing the negative depiction as unrealistic and urging a fair portrayal. Despite the backlash, fans remained committed but hope for a truer reflection of their city in future episodes. EastEnders fans in Milton Keynes take aim at soap. By Danny Fulbrook. BBC News, Buckinghamshire. Seeing your hometown featured on TV would usually be a source of pride, but not for Milton Keynes residents who tuned into EastEnders this week. The BBC One soap featured scenes set in the city. One child character living there was described in an episode as not being in school and instead was roaming the estate, carting drugs around, eating out of bins. EastEnders fans living in Milton Keynes want their voices heard too. No roundabouts or concrete cows. Image source Carl Downey. Image caption. Carl Downey said the EastEnders depiction of Milton Keynes was insulting. Carl Downey, 28, who has watched EastEnders since he was 4 years old, said he was excited to see the return of character Bianca Jackson in the two-part special. But he said he was disappointed to see how the show depicted us. Don't get me wrong, as with all towns and cities, Milton Keynes has its nicer and less than savory areas, but for show producers to decide to film all of Milton Keynes' scenes on a rundown council estate in the North London borough of Barnet was a bit insulting. The self-described hardcore fan said the episode gave Milton Keynes the image of being some ex-communist republic of the 1990s. Mr. Downey said the show could have featured the city's brutalist and modern architecture and green spaces, and joked that it could have included its delivery robots, concrete cows, and abundance of roundabouts. He added, "I will continue watching, but would prefer Milton Keynes to look more like Milton Keynes, and for Walford to look more like the East End of London." Absolutely disgusted. For 69-year-old EastEnders fan Lena Chilvers, the real drama was her own reaction in her living room. "I was so angry, I was absolutely disgusted, it's just so rude," she said, in response to the depiction. To actually single out a real place and portray it as the awful area they did, with kids running around the streets, drug addicts, the whole episode was so disgusting. Ms. Chilvers has lived in the city for 40 years and hopes other fans of the soap will visit the place for themselves. She said, "For me it's open and green, it's attractive and it's got everything you need in city. I live near Stony Stratford. I love that I can walk from a brand new house into an old town. I've got everything old and new." Leslie Scott, 70, has lived in the Milton Keynes area for 18 years and said the city gets a rough deal all the time and that it actually has everything you want apart from the sea. "It's not realistic. Girls eating out of dustbins, that's just typical EastEnders," she commented. Very insulted. Joan Shaw, who has spent 36 years in Milton Keynes, said, "Quite honestly, I was infuriated and felt very insulted. It was so negative and so untrue of Milton Keynes. It is not run down but a beautiful place to live." She argued the city continued to go from strength to strength with major businesses such as Red Bull, Santander and Volkswagen basing their UK headquarters in the city. Scenes set in the fictional town of Walford are usually filmed at Elstree Studio in Borehamwood, Hertfordshire, about an hour down the M1 from Milton Keynes. "After moving to a new town I knew no one, so I took matters into my own hands. If you feel like it's harder to make friends the older you get, you're not alone. While half of Brits find it difficult to make friends, and typically stop making friends around the age of 37, an overwhelming 72% of us would love to make new ones. So in the efforts of breaking the stigma around making pals later in life, Metro enlisted the expertise of the adults who have done just that, and have charted just how they made lifelong friends, which are easy for all of us to replicate. Whether you're out and about at the park, walking the dog or having a coffee at your local cafe, given the fact nearly 3/4 of Brits want to make new friends, if you strike up a conversation with someone it's likely they're looking for a pal too. When Sarah Hamilton moved to Cumbria in November 2012, she knew no one. Her husband is in the RAF, so moving home wasn't uncommon for the pair, but Sarah found starting over made it hard to find her people. Sarah tells metro.co.uk, as the serving person, my husband always had a brand new set of colleagues and social life, but I had to go out and find mine, especially here where it's a small RAF community. But in May 2013 Sarah, 48, decided to try parkrun, which she says gave her a community of her own and a great group of friends. Sarah says, I often say that we wouldn't still be living here now if I hadn't gone to parkrun. I registered in the January because I'd seen on Twitter that Carlisle Parkrun was launching, but I didn't go until May because I wasn't brave enough. The mom of one understands how hard it is to make friends as an adult, and she certainly didn't find it easy at first. She says, I was too nervous to speak to people at the start, so I was just watching what everybody was doing. During the run I thought, oh, they're really speedy, I don't want to speak to them. But after the race you're hanging around, especially when the weather is lovely, and you sit with a coffee and end up chatting. And that's kind of when all that interaction happens. I've now made a whole friend group. Many of Sarah's closest friends she's met at parkrun don't live in Carlisle, they were passing through, but they've kept in touch, meet up regularly and have lots in common. She also has a big community of friends locally through the fitness event. They'll go out for dinner and drinks together or catch up for activities like swimming and running followed by a trip to the pub. But if parkrun seems daunting to you, remember it isn't just for experienced runners. You run, jog or walk it if you want to, and some even bring their pushchairs to take round the circuit. Sarah, a library assistant, says, one of my friends had her second baby. So I walked with her and her mom the other day while she carried the baby round. Her husband was running while pushing their 4-year-old in the buggy as well, so it's literally for everybody. She adds, I walk at parkrun now, my body's just had enough of running. It's great to be able to still feel like you can take part even though you can't run anymore. We were laughing on Christmas Day because our winter course is 5 laps, so when you're at the back, you get lapped quite quickly by the quick runners. We weren't even a third of the way round the first lap walking when the first guy came past. There's no need to be that fast. Sarah's tips for those who want to give it a go is to go and watch your local parkrun first to see what it's like before giving it a go yourself, or you can even be a volunteer first. She explains, volunteering first makes people say, oh, I can actually do this, it's all right to just walk. Parkrun has a designated walker whose job it is to be last, so you will never be last and they would walk with you if you wanted them to. Marion Quay met her friend at church. Fashion expert Marion Quay made a new best friend by attending a Seventh-day Adventist church and says it's one of the friendliest places you can go. The 42-year-old lived in Reading 4 years ago, then traveled to the church in Hackney for the first time where she met Zin's bishop, whose son was 4 at the time. Zin sat next to Marion in the pews and noticed she was new, so she welcomed her to the church and apologized for her son fidgeting next to her. Marion tells metro.co.uk, that's actually how we started talking. She's very friendly, lovely and very sweet and very warm. Whenever there's anyone new, she will make sure they are okay. She told me the church hosts a lunch open to visitors so they have food where members can sit down and chat. It's like a potluck. But Marion had to dash home after the service and the two didn't exchange details. 2 years passed before Marion returned to that church, because she had found one closer to home, but after moving to Canary Wharf in May 2022 she returned to that very church where she met Zins again. Marion says, when I got to the church Zins was arriving at the same time as me. I didn't recognize her at first, but she recognized me. She said, you came in and sat next to me and my son. I remembered her then and we exchanged numbers. They then became fast friends, and now Marion gives Zins fashion advice and they go shopping together. We do everything together, Marion says. We shop together and on my birthday on November 14th Zins treated me to cake and coffee. We pray together and talk about mental health because Zins is a counselor. She even helped me move house. We do everything from the mundane bits of life to the fun things. Nicola met her friends dog walking. For those of us that have dogs, Nicola Wansworth believes that owning a dog makes it 10 times easier to make friends because you automatically have something in common. The 50-year-old lives in Minas Bay on the North Kent coast with her 2 dogs, Birdie, 4, and Mabel, 9 months, both of which are Tibetan Terriers. She even owns her own dog shampoo brand, Pup Suds. It's through walking her dogs on the beach that she met her best friend Natalie McGee. Nicola tells metro.co.uk, Natalie was the first person that I let Birdie off the lead with to play with her dog. I said, do you mind if I let my dog play with your dog? And she said absolutely. We got chatting and have been firm friends ever since. They now meet up for dog play dates where Natalie is often killing herself laughing because Nicola's dog is so naughty, while Natalie's Labradoodle Chester is well behaved. They also have a non-puppy evenings too. She says, we meet up for drinks and we'll go for lunch. There's now a little group of us, we're called the Ladies of the Bay. When Nicola meets someone on a dog walk she gets along with she will add them to a WhatsApp group of all her dog walker friends so they can meet up. She explains, in Minas Bay if you don't stop and have a half-hour conversation with passers-by on walks you're considered weird. You literally can't go anywhere with your dog without making friends down here. It's just so lovely. If you have a dog it seems to give people a reason to approach you, which I think is really sweet. Asking if you can stroke someone's dog can be a great icebreaker. Nicola also suggests puppy classes with your dog as a good way to make friends. You're all going through the same trials and tribulations of new puppy ownership, she explains, you all have a puppy that is literally trashing your home. You can ask, is your dog doing this? Or, what do you recommend for this? Nicola now has weekly meet-ups with her friends from these groups to socialize their dogs and drink gin together. She adds, now I just need my dog to meet another dog on the beach with a gorgeous man in tow, like 101 Dalmatians, then I'll have it made. Do you have a story to share? Please subscribe our channel.